When people talk about bringing back PC-98 Touhou characters to the Windows canon, most people only ever mention the more popular characters like Mima, Shinki, or Yumimi. And while I don't disagree with bringing them back, I do think there are other PC-98 characters that also deserve to come back or are easy to bring back. So in this video, I want to talk about the characters that I think should come back. Now for those of you who are not familiar with PC-98 Touhou, the first game came out back in 1997 on a computer system called the PC-98. The first 5 Touhou games were released on this computer, but after the 5th game, Zune decided to move the series over to Windows computers, which is what the 6th game and onwards were released on. And after switching to Windows, Zune ended up rebooting the series, so most of the characters, locations, and stories were never mentioned in the Windows canon. But despite this, some people do want the characters from the PC-98 canon to return to the Windows canon. Since there aren't actually that many PC-98 characters, I'm just going to go through all of them and talk a bit about why I think they should or should not come back. And for characters I think should come back, I'm going to try to find a good place for them in the new canon. I'm only going to go over the more humanoid characters, with one exception, since that tends to be the characters people only really care about. So don't expect to see characters like Spirit Mirror or 5 Magic Stones on here. A few things I want to mention before getting started is that just because I say that a character should not come back doesn't mean I have anything against them. The reason for not wanting them back tends to be that they either have so little information on them that makes it hard to place them in the new canon, or that bringing them back would conflict with the new canon in some way, like with its lore, or that a Windows character is just too similar to them. Another thing is that in the past, whenever a PC-98 character came back, they tend to get changed in some way. For example, PC-98 Alice and Yuka are very different from Windows Alice and Yuka, so if any other character comes back, it's very likely they will get changed. But in this video, instead of changing the PC-98 characters, I'm just going to try to place them in the new canon with changing them as little as possible just to make the video simpler. The last thing is that the video will be in 3 sections. The first is the characters that I think shouldn't come back. The second section will be the characters I think should come back. The last section will be the characters that can come back, but there are some potential problems. So with that all out of the way, let's get started. In its first section, for the characters that I think don't need to come back, I'm just going to go through them pretty quickly and say the main reason as to why I don't think they need to come back. But there is a little more I want to mention with them. I will just have it show up on screen and you can just pause the video to read it. So let's get started with Sengyoku, too little information. Yugen Magan, too little information. Elitz, too little information and too similar to Romilia. Kangara, too little information and too similar to Yugi. Noriko, too little information. Matenshi, too little information. Ellen, too similar to Maritza. Orange, too similar to Meiling. Karumi, too similar to Romilia. Ellie, can't do much without her without PC-98 Yuka. Hikariko, too little information. Mugetsu. To explain this character, I'm going to have to slow down. According to the Touhou Wiki, which is where I got pretty much all the information for this video from, Mugetsu resides and it's presumed to be the creator of a mysterious dream world, which would obviously conflict with Dorami's dream world, not to mention that she dresses as a blue maid, which can conflict with Sakuya, and that other than what I have just said about this character, there isn't really any more information on her. And then you have Gengetsu, who also has the dream world problem, and you can't really have her without Mugetsu. And lastly, there is Ayana, who has too little information on her. That's it. I just wanted to keep her at the end of the list so that the characters would be in order of appearance. Now that we are done with the characters that don't need to come back, we can move on to the part that everyone is probably here for, the characters that should return, starting off with Mima, who is pretty easy to bring back. In fact, her reappearance may be coming up. In case you have not heard, there's an official Touhou manga going on called Foul Detective Satori, and while it has not been confirmed, people are speculating that Mima may return in this manga. I don't want to spoil too much of what has happened so far in case anyone here has not read it, but I will say that there is a vengeful spirit that has known Reimu for a long time and had some sort of grudge against her, and out of all the existing Touhou characters, this description fits Mima pretty well. There are some differences between Mima and the vengeful spirit, but like I said earlier in the video, Zoom tends to change the PC-98 characters when they come back to Windows canon. Now, if Mima doesn't come back through Foul Detective, I do have a backup explanation on how she can come back. So Mima's ending in Mystic Square, which the last time we saw her, she decides she wants to become a god after fooling Shinki into thinking that she was one. So maybe eventually after Mima succeeds or fails at becoming a god, but more likely failing, she shows up at the Hawkray Shrine, goes up to Reimu and says something like, "Hey Reimu, I'm back. Sar was gone for over 20 years, and Reimu responds with, "Who the heck are you?" Genji. Genji is another really easy character to bring back. In fact, he is kind of already back in the new canon. In case you have not heard, Zuna mentioned before that Genji is probably living in the lake at the back of the shrine, so we can take this as Genji being canon in the Windows era. However, other than Zun's word, we have yet to see or hear from Genji. I think it would be easy to just have him appear in one of the manga as a cameo, a scene that takes place behind the Hawkray Shrine, where we would see him in the lake. Also, I doubt Genji will be able to talk or fly like he was able to do in PC-98. Instead, it would just be Reimu's pet, old, possibly yokai turtle. It would be sad to see Genji get downgraded from how he was in PC-98, but he is pretty useless in modern Touhou, so I'm fine with him just serving as a cameo once in a while. Mira. So there isn't that much information about Mira. She is a Stage 2 boss in Story of Eastern Wonderland, and attacks Reimu because she wants the power of Hawkray, whatever that means. Also, she's a samurai, and going off of that information alone would maybe put her out as a character that doesn't need to come back, but I had an idea about what to do with her, and I really like it. So I thought to put her in the human village, and since her occupation is a samurai, she can be the guard/protector of the human village. She is supposed to defend the village from yokai, but since yokai don't get in the village too often, and when they do, they're pretty sneaky about it, and even if a yokai were to attack the village, Reimu or Marissa would probably take care of it pretty quickly. So Mira ends up not doing much in her job, since she never sees much action. So if we go with my idea for Mira, I like the idea of her being reintroduced in one of the mainline games. She can be the Stage 2 boss as a reference to being a Stage 2 boss from her game she appeared in, and for the story, to solve whatever incident is going on, the protagonist needs to go through the human village, but they are stopped by Mira, who claims that the protagonist is a yokai or is working with the yokai, and after defeating her, she realizes that the protagonist has no relation to the yokai and lets them through. Kotohime. So Kotohime appears as one of the playable characters in Phantasmagoria of Din Dream, and her whole personality is that she is weird. In fact, she is so weird that even weirdos think she's weird. Also, she is supposed to be a princess and a police officer, but I don't really know what to do with that information, so I'm just going to go more with the part about her being crazy. So in the new canon, we can just throw her in the human village, and she can be the village's local nut. At first, she would seem just like any ordinary mentally stable person, but if she were to ever talk with you, she'd go on about all sorts of weird things and crazy conspiracy theories. And that's all I really have for her. Oh, and as for where she will appear, she'll probably just make cameos in the manga every once in a while. Rikako. Rikako is another playable character from Din Dream, and her whole thing is that she values science more than magic. So why don't we go along with the science part of her character, to where she is always fascinated with the latest sciencey thing in Gensokyo, whether it be the most recent cool-looking gadget that came into Gensokyo from the outside world, or the Kappa's latest invention. Now onto the Mystic Square part of the list, where I'm going to skip down to Shinki. Other characters from Mystic Square will be here, but it will be a lot easier to go over them after I explain Shinki first. So in case you don't know, Shinki is a creator and god of Makai, which is canon in the Windows era, although any part of Makai from PC-98, like locations or characters, have yet to appear. So my solution for this is just bring back the characters and maybe the locations too, and make it some reason as to why we didn't see any of them in UFO, like maybe Shinki just doesn't pay attention to the Hokai area. In fact, Maratsa describes it as tucked away in a corner of Makai, so maybe eventually a character will go to Makai and travel out of Hokai and encounter Shinki, who presumably still be the creator and god of Makai. Now, one problem with Shinki being in Windows canon is Alex. In case you don't know, Shinki created all the beings in Makai, and Alex first appeared as the Stage 3 boss of Mystic Square, which is located in Makai. It's not stated for sure if Alex is one of Shinki's creations or just a magician training there, but since Windows Alex is confirmed to be a yokai who used to be human, it's more likely that in Mystic Square she was just a magician training there. That is, if Alex is even still going to have a relation to Makai anymore. But Alex aside, I will be considering the rest of the Mystic Square characters to be Shinki's creations. Okay, so now back in order. Sara. Sara appears as a Stage 1 boss of Mystic Square, and is the gatekeeper of Makai, which sounds simple, but it's not, since there are like 4 different entrances to Makai in PC-98, and 5 if you count the Palanquin ship from UFO. So my suggestion is throw away all the entrances except for the ship, and maybe just keep one of the entrances, like the one for Mystic Square, which lies in a cave behind the Hawkray Shrine. So Sara would probably just show up to anyone who enters Makai, and try to chase away anyone she deems too weak to be in Makai. Lois. Lois appears as a Stage 2 boss of Mystic Square, and it's one of the Makai residents trying to go on vacation in Gensokyo, but that's really all there is to her character. So I just say throw her into Makai and she can appear as a background character there or something. Now I'm going to bundle up Yuki and Mai here because they are pretty much the same. They are both witches who are supposedly created by Shinki. Yuki is good at fire magic and Mai is good at ice magic. And as to how they can appear in Windows, it's the same as Lois. Although there is a problem with Mai, which is that she has some similarity to Cherno, with her light blue hair and dealing with ice as her element. There is also a Windows character named Mai, but I guess Zoom can just change her name and make her a bit more distinct from Cherno, or she can just not reappear. But you can't really have Yuki without Mai, so I guess it's up to you to what you think should be done with her. So that's it for the characters I think will be easy to bring back. So now we can go on to the characters that should come back, but there are some problems, or as I like to call it, the gray area. So I'm going to go in reverse order for this, because we left off with the Mystic Square characters, and want to finish them off with Yumiko. So Yumiko is a Stage 5 boss of Mystic Square, and is Shinki's maid. Now where the problems come in is her obvious similarities to Tsukuya. They are both Stage 5 bosses that are maids, and fight using bladed weapons, but there are some differences in those similarities, like Tsukuya wears blue and uses knives, while Yumiko wears red and uses swords. Personally, I do think there are enough differences that Yumiko can come back pretty unchanged, but I don't know if new fans of Touhou might somehow get them confused or think they are connected in some way. So who knows, but personally I really like Yumiko and want her back. Yumimi. Yumimi is the main antagonist of Den Dream, and she wants to prove to the outside world that magic is real, and in order to do this, she goes to Gensokyo and attempts to kidnap the heroine, but after failing, she goes home empty-handed. In Yumimi's ending, she gathers all the information on magic and presents it to her university, only to get laughed at and kicked out. So she goes back to Gensokyo, presumably to find another way to prove to the outside world that magic is real, or because she gave up on that goal and just wants to live amongst magic. Now the problem with Yumimi is that it is presumed that the outside world she is from is not the same as our outside world, or will that be Tsumuriko's? Whatever. The point is that something called the Grand Unified Theory has been established there. I had no clue what Grand Unified Theory was, so I looked into it a bit, and I can tell you that I still have no clue what it is, but it does seem to be some sort of physics thing, and the whole point of this point is that in magical astronomy, which takes place in the future outside world, it is hinted that Grand Unified Theory has been established there, meaning that Yumimi is most likely from the future. Now, while we have some characters in Windows that are from the future, it will still be a bit hard to bring back Yumimi, since she is involved with present Gensokyo, and while that was fine with PC-98 canon, here in Windows canon, we have characters that are associated with the outside world, So let's say if Yumimi did come back and someone like Simriko wanted to meet this other person from the outside world, then Yumimi would probably have to hide the fact that she is from the future, or Simriko will realize that Yumimi is from the future, which will probably open up a whole can of worms that I don't want to get into, since Simriko still goes back to the outside world, which will potentially mess up some stuff, since she knows some from the future. So if anyone wants to tell me how Yumimi can come back without screwing everything up, then feel free to tell me, but as for now, I don't think there's a good way to bring her back without drastically changing her character. Chiyuri. She's the same as Yumimi, same can of worms and all. Rikoto. Rikoto is a robot maid that was owned by Yumimi, but was given to Reimu in Reimu's ending of Dim Dream, and she is really terrible at everything and is not seen again after Dim Dream. Since she is so bad at her job, I do like to think that Reimu figured out how to turn her off and put her in the Shrine's warehouse, and then Reimu does what Reimu does and completely forgot about her. So maybe Reimu can rediscover her and turn her back on. Now the problem with this is that Reimu will eventually come to remember how awful Rikoto is at cleaning, and just either keep her on and deal with her, or turn her back off. And Reimu already has a green-haired helper at her shrine, so I don't think there's enough room for Rikoto there. Maybe Reimu can give her to someone else, but I don't know who in Gensokyo needs a crappy robot maid. So I do think Rikoto is a fun character. I don't really see a good way for her to return, so maybe it's best for her to stay forgotten in the Shrine's warehouse. Kana. Kana is one of the playable characters from Dim Dream. She's a poltergeist that haunts some mansion, but the people in said mansion are not scared of her, and she is relocated to Reimu's shrine in her own ending. Now, we already have poltergeists in the Winded's canon, being the Prism River sisters, and while Kana is the same species as them, she does seem different enough that there will be a little confusion between them. But the problem with Kana is that I don't really know what to do with her. We can put her in Reimu's shrine like in her ending, but I think there's enough going on at her shrine to where I don't think we need to add another character there. We can just have her haunt some random house in the human village, but the residents would probably just get someone to exorcist her from the house, or maybe they will not be scared of her and just deal with her. But having a yokai unable to scare humans just reminds me too much of Kogatsu. So Icona coming back may be able to work, there's just too much in the way in my perspective. Rika. Rika is a stage 1 boss as well as the extra stage boss, A Story of Eastern Wonderland, and she's a human that is good at building stuff. So in other words, she is like a human Kappa, which is the problem. Maybe you can just put Rika in the human village, and she can have some sort of relationship with the Kappa, but to me, there isn't much of a need for a human version of Notori. Kikuri. Kikuri is a stage 15 boss of the Hell Route of highly responsive to prayers, and she is located in Hell and is a Hell Moon, or the Hell Moon. I think we can easily just throw Kikuri in Hell to do Hell Moon stuff there, but the main problem with her is that just like pretty much every highly responsive character, there is very little information about her. I still do think she can be reintroduced as a character located in Hell, but I don't know exactly what she'll be doing there. Also, as much as I like her looking like a penny, I think it would be better if she had a full human body, and we had Hell's Sun for a while, so I think it's about time we get Hell's Moon. And finally, the last character from PC-98, Sairiel. Sairiel is the final stage boss of the Makai route of highly responsive. She is an angel of death, and it's located within the Fallen Shrine in Makai. Just like with Kikuri and other highly responsive characters, there's little information on Sairiel, but I do think it would not be hard to bring her back. She can just be thrown into Makai, assuming it gets expanded on, like I said earlier with Shinki. Now, while I want to stay close to canon when going over these characters, I do want to go over a bit of my headcanon with Sairiel, because I would love it if this was a canon. So my depiction of Sairiel is that she used to be an angel from heaven, but after acquiring a lust for power and exploring dangerous elements such as death, she tried to overthrow the king of heaven but failed, and as a result was banished to Makai and was imprisoned within the fallen shrine until the end of time. I just really like that depiction for Sairiel, since it can introduce a bit more Christianity to Touhou, and would explain a bit on heaven angels, which we do know exists but have yet to see one. But I really just want Sairiel back because she's one of the coolest looking PC-98 characters. So that's it. My take on which PC-98 characters should come back and which ones shouldn't. If I had to choose only 5 characters to come back, it would definitely be Mima, Genji, Mira, Kotohime, and Shinki. I'd love to know what you guys think of my opinions on the characters, and if you disagree with which characters you think should or shouldn't come back. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I do have more of these Touhou video essay like videos planned. My goal is to get these out once a month, but if not, then definitely once every 2 months. It just depends on how much school and my own laziness gets in the way, and we'll have smaller videos in between these, so no matter what, I should have a video out at least once a month, hopefully. Anyways, thanks for watching, goodbye.